Okay, so welcome to Lily Mae Francis, mental health check-in that we do once a month on Saturdays. Today's session is going to be about forgiveness. So we know we know that forgiveness can sometimes be very difficult. Sometimes we may have been in situations where we are actually trying to figure out how we can forgive someone. Someone may have wronged us to a degree that it feels like forgiveness is outside of our capacity, right? So that's a common feeling. I'm sure at some point we've all experienced some degree of that difficulty with forgiveness, especially since like from a childhood, like culturally, we've been told that it's good to forgive, right? And that forgiving is something that's for you, not necessarily for the other person that wronged you. But that doesn't, just because that's what's preached doesn't mean it's a easy thing to do. So today's session is going to be a little bit more information about how we can work on forgiveness as a process to kind of bring that peace to our spirit when someone has wronged us. So again, forgiveness is a process where someone who has wronged us makes a conscious, I'm sorry, someone who has been wrong makes a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of anger, resentment, or vengeance toward the person or group that harmed them. So we know those are some of the things that we're feeling when someone has treated us badly. We feel angry, we feel resentment, and we may even want to, get have some feelings of get back. So treating the offender with compassion, even if they don't deserve it, is a big part of forgiveness. It's going to be an emotional change that occurs within you when you forgive um, the person who has wronged you, and it is a strategy for healing, not being stuck in the space and the pain or the anger that you're feeling, um, but being able to move forward. So that first phase of that process is called the uncovering phase. So in that first phase, um, it'll help you to improve your understanding of the injustice and how it impacted your life. So within that process, things that you're going to reflect on, things that you're going to ask yourself, and then actually take the time to sit down and process it is what happened? Why was it wrong? Why was it unfair? Why did it make me feel so angry or so negative? Practice identifying the feelings. So, like, am I angry? Am I sad? Am I embarrassed? Am I disappointed? A lot of times anger is our primary emotion, meaning it's the first emotion that pops up in situations. But often there's other secondary emotions behind that. And so, taking a moment to think, what else am I feeling about this situation? And quite possibly, it could be those underlying feelings or those secondary feelings that are actually giving you the most pain. Again, anger could just be the response, but then underneath it, it could be things like embarrassment or betrayal, right? How has the wrong impacted you or affected you? Was it painful? Did it change your behaviors? So, for example, based on how that person treated you, have you stopped doing certain things? Have you stopped allowing certain people in your life? Have you changed the way you function based on how they made you feel? Did it cause you any type of physical harm? Did it cost you time or money? Again, these things are things in this first phase that you reflect on, and it's part of the processing of your feelings related to the wrongdoing. The second phase is going to be the decision phase. During this phase, you're going to explore your understanding of what forgiveness means, how it can be beneficial to you, and decide whether you're going to choose or reject the strategies. And I say strategy, remember, I'm saying this is something that we're doing um, systematically. Like, we're going through these steps systematically because in our mind, we have said, I want to forgive them, but I'm not sure if I can. So, we go through the first phase where we're doing all the reflecting and thinking and identifying our emotions related to the injustice and how it's impacted us. And now we're going to take a moment to say, reflect on these things regarding what has happened. So first step is understanding that you do have a right to feel the way you do. So you're justified, your feelings are valid, um, and you may feel that they don't have a right for forgiveness. Maybe they haven't earned your forgiveness. Um, Maybe it feels like it's something that's unforgivable. Um, you're also going to think about at this point, what are the possible pros and cons of forgiving? So if I forgave them, you know, how would that impact? If I didn't forgive them, how would that impact me? How would that impact me in accordance or in relationship with other people? How would that impact, my daily functioning? Again, if what they've done has made me change or alter my behavior or my choices, is this something that's effective for me? Is this something that's hindering me? These are the kind of things that you would be thinking about at this point. And if you do decide to forgive, what would change? Either within your relationships with others, within you, within your interaction or relationship with that person, just exploring all of those different ways that it could look different, either way, whether you chose to forgive or not to forgive. So then it's time to do the work. A lot of people are kind of, I don't know, discouraged from this part because they feel like it takes them from being
If
the
she turns the
victim.
corner shaking her head, you have to say, uh oh.
I'm sorry, someone, I think that's Kier. Kier, can you mute your mic for me? I'm sorry, guys, I went too far. Uh oh, excuse me. Okay, okay, so as I was saying, I'm sorry, did someone have a question? Okay, so as I was saying, a lot of people have difficulty with this phase because it makes them feel like they're taking um, they're not holding the wrongdoer accountable, right? So it's like I don't have time to worry about what may have happened in their life, what may have happened in their childhood, what may have happened in that moment that made them do what they did. But it is an important part. It doesn't excuse their behavior, but it does give us a deeper understanding of why they may have acted badly or made that bad decision or choice. So these are some things that you can kind of consider, not hold them accountable, but just to provide a little grace and acknowledge that people are human, right? So, what was their life like when they grew up? What have they experienced throughout their life? How may this have impacted their behavior? Can you relate to their feelings or actions in any way? So this would be a point where you would consider, any wrong that you may have done to other people, and if those people forgave you for anything that you've done. Um, do you have any positive feelings toward them at all, even though you feel badly about them at that moment, based on how they treated you? Are there any positive things that they've done, done for you, or positive interactions that you guys have had? Have your feelings changed over time? It definitely gets easier to forgive if time has passed, and that time is going to look different for everyone. Everyone's going to have their own timeline of when they forgive. But if you are in this process, if you're actively seeking to, you know, contemplate on whether or not you can forgive someone, that could be a factor. Okay, this has gone on for 2, 3, 4 years. That could be something that you're considering. And how do I feel now, as opposed to how I felt then? Something else to explore. Again, big emphasis on empathy, compassion, and grace. And again, understanding that this does not mean condoning that you're not holding them accountable, or that you were not the victim in a situation. Um, we can understand someone and still believe that their actions are not acceptable. Those two things can exist at the same time. So the next phase is the deepening phase. During the deepening phase, because you've gone through all of those different reflections and all the different phases, um, you're better able to release the negative emotions associated with the event, and may be able to acknowledge personal growth. So At this point, you made a decision to forgive. So you were going through all the other phases, and remember I told you it's in the other phase it was going to be a yes or a no. So once we're here in the deepening phase, on the other side of forgiveness, we can reflect on, what did I gain by offending them? A lot of people will, I mean, by forgiving them, a lot of people will say peace, peace of mind. Some people will say, well, I didn't feel comfortable not forgiving them when I've been forgiven in the past by other people for things that I've done. So it felt like, the kind thing to do to show someone the same grace and mercy that I've been shown. Um, how do you feel emotionally and mentally now that you've decided to forgive that person? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel liberated? I think empowered is a big piece of that, because a lot of times if we're holding that energy in, it's like that person still has control of that moment, right? And so sometimes letting that energy go, that negative energy, that anger, gives us that power back. So now you no longer have control of, you know when I'm angry, what I do based on the fact that you make me angry, what choices I make based on what you did to me. I Once forgiving you, I can take all that power back.
I have a
And that
question.
uh-huh.
Um, so if I forgive, right? But I mean, I guess, have I really forgiven if I still feel a particular way towards that person? And I would say, like, I think once somebody hurts you and you forgive them, you still kind of feel like, but I now know that that person is capable of hurting me like that. And so, is that, have I still forgiven if I still feel that feeling?
It's what I'm hearing you describe is basically, they hurt me, so I'm not going to put them in a position to hurt me again. Is that correct? Because
Some of that, and just more so, I now know what I could, what this person is capable of doing, what could happen.
I don't think that's related to forgiveness, because that's lesson learned, right? But when you see that person or you think of that person, are you still having those same feelings of anger and resentment and whatever other feelings are associated with the wrongdoing? Or are you just saying, I'm done with them? Because it's okay to be done with them. It's okay to not want to interact with them. It's okay to want to end the relationship. You can end the relationship because you don't trust that person anymore, but still forgive them.
I think, and Yanni put in the chat, yes, it's kind of like, I forgive you, but I won't forget. And I think that's where I was trying to go. Like, I'm never going to forget what you did, but I can, move on and not, treat you badly because of the mistake that you made.
Yeah, definitely. And not just not treat you badly, not have you occupied too much of my mind, not have you, occupied too much of my emotions. That's the part that helps us, the forgiveness parts. So, yeah, I forgive you, but I don't trust you, or I'm not interested in remaining in a relationship with you. But I'm not spending time thinking about how bad I feel about what you did to me, because I forgive you. So I like release you and I release myself.
Okay.
Um, and that's when you're going to be able to reflect and see, have you grown as a result of this experience? Was it actually a negative that turned into a positive, based on what you experienced and what you learned, and what you worked on within yourself in that space? Do so some people will say that experience, although it felt very bad and difficult and painful, made me stronger. I feel more compassionate. Like I said, I feel more empowered. So it's, at some point it may be even be a case of, thank you for putting me through that. I know it may sound hard to imagine getting to that point, especially depending on how grievous the injustice was. But some people actually come out on the other side like stronger, and feeling like, okay, that was your purpose. That was your purpose, to teach me that. And now I'm better across the board. Um, and then are able, like the last bullet point says, and then are able to share that um, ability of forgiveness and compassion with other people. So here's a couple of, just a quick rundown of what forgiveness is and what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is letting go, like I said, letting go of those emotions and not having those emotions be, occupy your time, your mental space, your spirit. Recognizing that the wrongdoer is human and treating them decently despite what they did. Forgiveness is a chance to amend a relationship that was damaged if you choose to, and a mental shift or a change of heart that develops over time. Forgiveness is not condoning, approving of, or excusing what happened. It's not forgetting how you were wronged or pretending like nothing happened. And forgiveness is not an agreement to continue a relationship as it was. You can choose to resume, go on like nothing happened, or we can modify it, or we can end it. And I think one of the biggest things is it's not for the other person. The forgiveness is for you.
I think one of the things that you said that was important is that we can choose to modify. Because I think that, I have trouble with forgiveness personally because I don't allow a lot of people into my space. I'm not very trusting to begin with. So the
Mm-hmm.
people that I allow into my space, um, if they hurt me, it's very hard for me to recover from it because it's almost like I personally selected you to
Mm-hmm.
be, in my life and in my space in this capacity. And because I personally um selected you, you had already checked off all of the check boxes that said that you wouldn't do me this way. So I think for me, because they typically are really close, and some, relatives or whatever, to forgive you, I would just have to modify the relationship to say
Mm-hmm.
that you're not, somebody that I can trust with, whatever I trusted you with to begin with, but I can still, you know, be cordial to you or what have you, but not have the relationship be the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's important to understand. And, and or you can choose to discontinue the relationship. Like the two can exist independently. Like I can forgive you and choose not to continue the relationship. Um, again, because the forgiveness is for me and not for you.
And I think another part of that is to also forgive yourself for feeling like I let you in, you did this to me. It falls on me for letting you in.
That's a very good point, Denise. Thank you for that. I think that's very important. A lot of times we do start, we do blame ourselves for, like Lynn was saying, I chose you. And so, what did I miss? Um, but for me, that takes me to the space of reflecting on what I have done to people in the past that they've forgiven me for. People have forgiven me for things that I would never forgive them for. And so when you think about it that way, it's like, okay, well, why not? If someone else had enough grace and compassion and mercy, and love, whatever the case may be, to forgive you for something, then the least I could do is try, harder than I just can't. It hurt so bad. I felt too betrayed. You were too close. I just think it takes a little bit more. It takes more effort. It takes more work. It takes more compassion, right? And I think it is a space of personal growth. I consider forgiveness more now than I did when I was 20. At 20, everything that you did to me felt like, you know, the end of the world, right? But so hopefully, as I age and experience and interact and grow, that process will be something that's easier. Um, again, because it's for me. It's not it's not for the other person.
I also think that forgiveness is attached to intention. If
Mhm.
you hurt me and it was intentional, like you had to go out of your way to do this to me, I think that screams, yeah, I could forgive you, but I don't have to be around you.
Mhm.
Um, but there are some things that are accidental. Somebody may have, because I'm a very private person. If I tell you something in confidence, that's between me and you.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we have a mutual friend that I may or may not tell does not give you the right to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
If I want them to know, I'll tell them. And so those things are very important to me, but that's not necessarily intentional.
Mm-hmm.
But most people that know me know that, so they, it kind of would be, but at any rate, still not, I didn't intend to hurt you by doing this. I
Yeah.
might have thought that maybe we should talk about this, me and this other mutual friend need to talk about this for Lynn, you know what I'm saying, or something to that effect. But, there are things that people do that, they knew before they do it that it would hurt you and they chose to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. And then there are things that people do that they don't know will hurt you, but that doesn't change the fact that it hurts. Right. And so we still might be in a space of you should have known, you know, but they didn't. But it's still a point of like, I don't know if I can forgive it.
Yeah.
So overall, I just think, and I liked your point when you said, intent. I definitely think intent is going to weigh into my reflection, right? When I'm thinking about the offense and I'm like, well, and I'm also thinking about the person and their background and their life and what could have caused them to do such a things. Intent is definitely going to go in there. But I just think this overall, because the process is more about you than about them, all those pieces go together to just and lead to a point where, do I want to keep carrying this weight? Because anger is a weight, right? Resentment is a weight. And they're extremely heavy. And when we think about, if we think about it in a physical weight, if you were to let those things go, the level of relief that you would feel, and just the freedom and like the independence and the empowerment, I guess is what I'm summing up, of just being able to not have to worry about that pain, and I can focus on things that make me feel good, things that are positive. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to add or comment? Okay.
It's very interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's important.
It's definitely important to know that the forgiveness is for you. Um, because we shouldn't be trying to forgive somebody for them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely thought that was worth mentioning. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think because sometimes people go, like they feel like they're blessing the person with forgiveness. Like I'll forgive you, like, but it's really more about, um, like you said, how you feel and what you can release and let go.
And it's kind of like taking your power back, because
Exactly.
when you allow them to be in your space like that, taking up your energy, then
Mm-hmm.
that's negative energy that could be directed, into a positive manner somewhere else.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to mention, we touched on it, but no one has brought it up yet. And I think this is a worth reflecting on how your behaviors may have changed based on how that person treated you. And so I think it's important for us to, reflect on, have I changed everything about how I do this or how I interact with so and so, or with my family, or with people in general, based on what they did. Again, it's about power, right? And then if we are changing how we interact with other people, is that a positive interaction? So are we actually putting the are we making the next people pay for what that person did? That's unfair. Easy to do because we're going to always try to be in a stance to protecting ourselves, but not fair to the other person because they're not the one that hurt you. So if you're still holding on to that hurt, then you're still acting out that hurt in other relationships.
I know at
Okay,
work
guys.
I'm constantly not constantly, but I'm frequently in a position where uh, verbiage, disrespectful verbiage might have been thrown at me. And, but I understand first and foremost, it ain't really about me. It's about these people that's coming to visit their loved ones and they're concerned and they're agitated and anxiety and their assumptions have taken them to a different level of consciousness. And so most of the time, once you get past all of that, they then come back around. They also want to apologize and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And it's to me, I always say the same thing. It's no big deal. I understand what you were concerned about in the moment. And but I am appreciative that they do turn around and apologize in most cases.
Yeah.
And you're right. If I let that person get under my skin, then everybody else I got to interact with is going to will feel the wrath for that, and I'm also conscious of that as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Again, that's the power that we were talking about, to empower. And I was thinking before we started today, I was thinking, because I was thinking of the difference between, forgiveness and, well, because I guess because forgiveness feels like such a big word. Like if I'm saying I forgive you, then what you
Mhm.
must have done is pretty big, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, you apologize and I accept. Like for something smaller, I'm sorry. Okay, it's all good. We good, right? And I'm not so good with that second one. I'm not so good with the small minor infractions. And then someone's like sorry, and I'll stay angry for a minute, right? But that doesn't feel like forgiveness to me. But before we started today, I was thinking it actually is. It's just on a smaller scale, right? So within our relationships, with our family, with our spouses, with our children, um, you know, the real work might be working to start forgiving those small things faster, and to make it easier to forgive the bigger things, like to get in the habit of being compassionate, to get in the habit of considering the other person's side of the story, to get in the habit of taking our power back, like you were saying here, like just sitting at work, taking your power back with each person that comes in, and not letting how they're acting under distress control what you do next. Maybe that's the even bigger work, to do that on a small scale on a daily basis, in interactions with people, regular, normal, small, um, in grievances, that will build kind of like that muscle of forgiveness. Well, that's all I have today, guys. A little short session, but I definitely appreciate. Before we wrap up, does anyone have anything else they want to add, or any feedback?
Uh, I think it's possible to practice forgiveness in short bites, just like you said, because we're always uh, exposed to things that can definitely take us out. From anything as simple as just a little road rage to,
Mm,
you know, your counterparts at at the place where you work, or just the people that you interact with, and your loved ones to a degree as well.
hmm.
So
That's
I
a
think
very
it's
good. Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
think it's absolute I think it's absolutely possible to consciously recognize how you feel in the moment, and like you said, Nikki, you forgive them, but you still kind of hot. If you can recognize that in yourself, then you just take a step back,
Hmm.
and because I know for me, I go from pissed off to laughing because once I really think about it, I go, yeah, wasn't really worth it. Not
Hmm.
really that big a deal. I don't think this is going to really change my life because that's something that I think would merit major thought on forgiveness. Like, is this going to change my life? Forgiving this person, is it? Am I? It's like you said. Is this going to make me a dark personality or something? Nah. I try to be mindful not to let anything get me in that area or that headspace. But it takes practice.
Yeah. And when you mentioned the road rage one, that to me that's a daily practice of forgiveness, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Anytime we get in the car,
Hmm.
it, yeah. And what came to mind when you said that was, because a strategy that I did for road rage, because I had been in Atlanta for 20 some years, you can develop a serious case of road rage. And I think that's where mine, you know, got so strong. But he definitely, um, one of my strategies, that's what I was saying. One of my strategies was to first distract myself, and then with music, and then to be grateful in the moment. So instead of going off about how you almost killed me when you cut me off, I started focusing on I'm still here. You didn't hit me. You didn't hurt me. You didn't hurt my family. So, bye. You can just go on by out my mind because everything's okay. Right. Again, I think that's something that we can employ in that reflection, in that process of trying to forgive. Like you said, Kier, how did it impact me overall? Did you harm my children with what you did? Did I lose everything I own because of what you did? Right? So those things are going to weigh in as well. And if we look at what we're grateful for, what we didn't lose because of the harm, it might help us in that forgiveness process. Um, you know, what did we lose? How did it impact? How much weight were those things? And I'm sure if the majority of them were just kind of like our pride or embarrassment or things like that, it's going to feel a little bit different. Um, and the harder and the deeper those impacts are, it's going to be a little bit harder in that process of working on forgiveness, forgiving that person. But definitely, I think gratitude will play a part in that and helping us with that process.
And I think too, in some situations, you have to deal with generational forgiveness.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
very good
Mm-hmm.
point.
I got on that. My mother has not spoken to one of my elder aunts for the last 5 years over
Randy doing like little
over
mental
my
health.
aunt kind of misunderstanding and ranting over something, and my mother was so assaulted by it, and she carried on with it. She still carries on with it. I go, but every now and then I tease her. I go, okay, so did you talk to her about it? No, I'm not talking to her. She's gonna have to call me. Well, she's the elder aunt. What's the chances of that actually happening? And she gets
Mm-hmm.
quiet. And it's like, okay, so what are you gonna do? Wait till you're at her coffin before you let her go? Let it go? Like I don't. Some things just doesn't make sense to carry it that far. I think there's also a danger of taking things too far. Like where
Mm-hmm.
they're at. Unfortunately, the whole relationship that's existed my whole life is just interrupted over one misunderstanding. And I also told my mom, you got to be careful because my mom was also to a point exhibiting revenge in what she was saying. I said, if you didn't call her back immediately and discuss that conversation at that time, anything you do from this point, not only will you not be understood, but you will look very disrespectful
Mm-hmm.
because nobody's going to know where you're coming from with it. She may not even acknowledge that she did it. She might not even be aware of what she did to you. And but she does acknowledge that she does know that her one of her favorite nieces, who she used to talk to every 2 3 times a week, no longer speaks to her. And how do you
Mm-hmm.
think that feels? And so I try to guilt my mom every now and then to recognize what you're doing, because time is limited in some cases. You It's a waste of time to sit there and forgive a coffin.
Mm, mm. And that's a big point too. Time, right?
Uh-huh.
So time spent not talking through it and coming to some type of resolution or understanding is time wasted, like you said, just in general. And we have limited time, and we don't know how much time that is. And
Uh-huh.
so that speaks again to the gratitude or the grateful piece of, if I have time, I need to use it building relationships or even repairing relationships when we're talking about wrongdoing or people who are doing us wrong, particularly with people we love. It just seems much harder to forgive. I mean, it feels like it should be much easier to forgive someone you love than someone you don't love. But some people struggle with either way.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I have no question that they love each other. They're just not speaking to each other, and that to me makes no sense.
Yeah, because of the time wasted.
Hmm. So many things that's going on that could have happened that
Hmm.
they would have wanted to know about, but they're not speaking to each other, and it's like, okay, all right, let me know how that works out for you. I already know how it's going to end, but
Mm.
let me know how it's working out for you.
Hmm. You might have to do a parent trap type scenario, Sean.
Yeah,
Invite them to the same spot and then walk out the room,
yeah,
and then they can both be mad
yeah.
at you.
Oh, that's all right. I can take it. I'm gonna laugh at them. I'm like, whoa, you mad because I brought you together? Tell me what's wrong with that. Okay, good luck with
Okay.
that.
All right. Hey, Larry. Thanks for coming. All right. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add or any input?
Forgiveness is healthy, people.
Yes. Again, for you. Hi, Hassan. All right, guys. So for the people who just joined, today we talked about forgiveness and the importance of forgiveness, process for forgiveness, and kind of some of the ways to work through that, and understanding that forgiveness is not um, for the other person; it's more for you. And forgiveness does not release the person of the responsibility of what they did to you, but more so releases you from the weight of the feelings that you have related to what they did to you. And so we did finish our presentation a little early, but I wanted to see if you guys that just joined had anything that you wanted to add or any insight, excuse me, about forgiveness. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for showing up once again for our Saturday session. And we will see you guys next month. Look for the postings that'll let you know exactly the date of that presentation. We appreciate your support.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Great
Bye.
session. Great session.
Thank you. You guys enjoy your Saturday.